Hello everyone, Merry almost Christmas. It is time for my second ever Classy Whale Q&A. So let's get going with your questions. Amtrak Kirby asks, will I be visiting other countries in my future videos? I'm currently planning on visiting Mexico next year, as well as possibly parts of Canada. And then a couple years from now, I'm kind of aspirationally hoping to go to Japan, but that's very much up in the air right now. Spaceboy YT asks, do you think Denver will have its own silver line eventually? I don't think Denver's into doing colored lines, so unless they completely rebrand their system, they won't have a proper The Silver Line. North Philly Railfan Productions asks, do I prefer SEPTA Regional Rail or MBTA Commuter Rail? I would say that they're both good systems, but MBTA Commuter Rail has the bones of a good regional rail system, it just needs more frequency, and SEPTA has the bones of a good sort of WMATA BART style system, it just needs more frequency. So once both of them have more frequency, then I'll form a more solid opinion. Nashorn9745 asks, Metra Gallery Cars or Stadler Kiss? To that I would say, Sebasguy12 asks, will I ever do Classy Whale versus the New York metropolitan area, or Classy Whale versus New Jersey? I hope to do a few videos along those lines in 2023, so stay tuned for that. I believe one of them is going to be a subscriber meetup as well. Collectively Improving Transit and several others have asked, will I be doing the L train in New York for my Silver Line video? No, that is not The Silver Line. It is a silver colored line, that's not the same thing. History and Leisure wonders, will Pittsburgh be getting its commuter rail back before 2050? There has actually been talks of a commuter rail line for Pittsburgh since the cancellation of the PA train several decades ago, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime in the near future. Perhaps by 2050 though. Matthew Ramala asks, what is the best private bus operator operating in Pennsylvania? Honestly, whichever one has the cheapest seats. I don't really care. Now, if the jet comes to Pennsylvania, that might change things. Dave Shopwave asks, what is your favorite locomotive? Well, unlike a lot of train buffs, I like a lot of newer stuff. The Amtrak ACS 64s are pretty amazing. They look a lot better than the AAM 7s, which look like toasters. And they're, a lot more modern than most of Amtrak's fleet, including the AM fleets. But I am partial to the GG one too. Brendan Yu asks, what are my top 10 favorite commuter railroads in the United States? Well, in no particular order, they would be, let's see, Long Island Railroad because it's basically regional rail, New Jersey Transit, Metro North, Metra, MBTA Commuter Rail, SEPTA, Caltrain, maybe Denver. They need more lines though. It's hard to think of that many good commuter rail lines, to be honest. Pavel D asks, what kind of questions should we ask? I'm assuming this was about my Q&A, but since I enjoy being deliberately difficult, I'm going to pretend you're asking about in general. In general, ask, what is the most realistic way to describe the world we live in, and what could it realistically become? The 112 asks, what are your favorite subway, light rail, commuter rail, and Amtrak stations in the US? For subway, I would have to say Metro Center in Washington, D.C. Light rail, probably Steel Plaza here in Pittsburgh. Both of them are kind of brutalist and overbuilt and really, really cool. Commuter rail, Ogilvy Transportation Center, because it has a Jamba Juice. And Amtrak, nothing will ever beat 30th Street Station in Philadelphia. No, wait, scratch that! Grand Central Terminal, because that is a commuter-only station most of the time. That is probably the single awesomest train station in the country. The only thing it lacks is intercity service. Na 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 na. Ba-da-dum ba-dum ba-da-dum. Please tell me in the comments if you get that reference. Street Ruffian asks, where did I get the Korean corn dog and was it any good? Well, it was recommended to me by one of my friends, whose name I won't mention, and it was rather overpriced and not very special. Bernhild Valkyrie asks, what is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? Well, that depends. Is it African or European? Mass by Train asks, What are my thoughts on Steve Poftak? Isn't he the well there's your problem guy? Sammy Marco asks, did you grow up riding transit or was it a thing you discovered later in life? Well, I grew up riding the Washington Metro when I went to visit my grandmother in DC, but besides that and the occasional trip on the Amtrak Keystone, almost all of my transit ridership has been as a college student or older than that. I didn't even ride the bus system in Lancaster where I grew up until 2021. Seamus McKeon asks, what's the worst transit experience that I'm willing to share? Well, to be honest, I did not enjoy riding the Baltimore Metro. There were not a lot of people on it. I didn't feel super safe just because of the lack of crowds. And one person, as they were getting off the train, just randomly threw an unwrapped piece of candy at me like a projectile. It was very strange and unexpected. Although, if we count intercity rail as transit, when I was leaving Oujda to go back to western Morocco, I got all the way to the train station, got out of my taxi, and realized I didn't have my phone, and I was kind of conflicted as to whether or not I was going to get on the train and go west or stay in the city to find my phone. And so, I was kind of in a panic state. I wasn't really thinking clearly. So I actually walked out all the way to the platform, decided against getting on the train, and walked back to the station, only to then change my mind and walk back out to the platform. But the second time I lost my ticket, so the train left and I was in Oujda and I didn't end up finding my phone. Now, that ticket was like $60 and I lost it, and that was $60 down the drain. So one of many money losing instances from that particular trip. Join my Patreon. J Corp asks, can you have your next meetup in Chicago? Well, I won't necessarily say yes or no to that just now. Probably not for a long time though. I do plan on doing meetups in Philly, New York, and Boston next year, but I have no idea what dates yet. Matthew Gramala asks, do I think Pittsburgh is going to initiate any kind of commuter rail in the future? Interestingly, I got more comments about this than I did about Morocco when I first posted about the Q&A. Like I was saying earlier, I think it could happen, probably not in the near future. But I think it would be really cool to have something like that. More importantly though, I think it would be cool to have the light rail extended to Swissville along the East Busway, which is pretty similar to the route that the old commuter rail took. Ontario Traffic Man suggested changing AmGo, my proposed budget Amtrak alternative, to Amigo, which I kind of like. It's sort of like WeGo in France. Like WeGo sounds like English, but it's also French. And Amigo is, of course, Spanish. But there's a lot of Spanish speakers in America. I can see it. Roberto Sampson asks, what is my favorite gum? Probably whatever that gum is that comes in cubes in a little plastic container. The only thing is it's really expensive, and there's no wrapper to spit it out in. So it's kind of a drawback. I don't chew gum a whole lot. Andrew Mazzarini asks, what's an Amtrak route I'd like to ride from end to end someday? I would honestly love to ride one of the Florida routes, either the Silver Star or the Silver Meteor, mainly to go to Jacksonville and ride their interesting monorail. ABCE asks, what is the best intercity bus route in the United States? Honestly, it's kind of hard to say. There's a lot of really good routes, like up and down the Northeast Corridor, or connecting rather sparsely populated areas, or connecting areas that aren't served by Amtrak corridors. Those become very crucial. But if I had to pick a fun one, I would say the tunnel bus between Detroit and Canada. History and Leisure asks, what's somewhere I regret going? Well, to be honest, when I was filming some videos in San Francisco that you'll see next month, I tried to ride a trolleybus just to make sure I could get that into my plan. And because I rode the trolleybus, even though it was fun, I missed my Caltrain and had to take BART to the airport, which meant that my planned video on Caltrain did not materialize, and thus you will never see it. Sepasky12 asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the heat in Morocco? I would say it's maybe a 7. It wasn't nearly as bad as I was anticipating, but I did make sure to be prepared by drinking a lot of water and trying to stay in the shade during the hottest parts of the day. Overall, it was never really overwhelming. In fact, I probably suffered from heat more in Toronto than I did in Morocco, and that's almost certainly because of the humidity. Collectively Improving Transit asks, why did I think to go to Morocco? Well, I'd never been to Africa before, and I'd really want to check out their train system. Morocco is a country that really invested in their rail infrastructure very heavily. It's also not a Western country, so there's a lot of new culture, new foods, new experiences to discover. So I thought, all that together would result in a pretty cool adventure, and it did. James S. asks, what was the best food I ate in Morocco? I gotta say, my favorite Moroccan food was the breakfasts I had at a couple of my Airbnbs. They had several different kinds of bread, several different kinds of dip, like olive oil and honey, and this kind of soft butter. There was olives, there was fresh squeezed orange juice, and of course, mint tea. So all that together was just a very, very yummy breakfast. I really miss that. I wish I could have that for breakfast every day. Thank you. Sammy Marco asks, did I ever get my phone back? No, I did not. Kalkidan, who you may remember from the My Ethiopian Friend Tries Amtrak for the First Time video, was very supportive when I first lost my phone. But when I got back to the States, she was just like, LOL, you lost your phone in Africa and you expected to find it again. And so we come to the end of another Q&A. Thank you so much for all of you who submitted questions. I really, really appreciate all of you. Most of you have joined this channel this year, 2022. Also, huge shout out to my Discord community for just being awesome people. I think that one thing I love about transit is how it connects just the randomest places and people. Just tonight, I randomly went to the Christmas market in Greensburg, which I didn't even know was a thing until I got there because I took a random bus that I wanted to review for this channel. And throughout this year too, I've met really, really cool people doing these transit adventures. People who are working at museums and model railroad clubs. People who are using transit for very different reasons than I am. People who, like myself, like to make transit videos and blogs and stuff like that. Transit is fundamentally about people and places, not just trains and buses. And so, starting next year, 2023, every Monday, this channel will be home to a brand new series. This series is called Priority Seating, and it will detail both the stories of people with disabilities who use public transportation and the policies and interventions that go into their experience. Now, of course, the Classy Whale content you would know and love won't be going anywhere. That'll be every Thursday, and starting in January, we're going to have adventures in California and Cleveland, Ohio. After that, I have quite a few adventures right here in Pittsburgh planned, and if you want to see more further afield adventures, then support my Patreon, because I'm broke. Thank you so much for watching, have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you after the holiday. Take care.